Wonderful. I think we have quite a few people now. Thank you so much to everyone for joining. So today's webinar, looking at setting up security deposits like a Homhero Pro. Just to let you know that this session will be recorded, so we'll provide a copy for you afterwards. I know it's not easy to find a whole hour in your day, so if you do need to leave at any time, please don't worry, you can catch up later. There are also some people that let us know in advance that they wouldn't be able to attend. So if you are just tuning in to watch this recording afterwards, hello as well. My name is Tatiana. As you can see here, it is spelt differently than it is pronounced. I've been with Homhero for almost 3 years now. Prior to that, I was managing holiday properties in the Gold Coast for almost 5 years, which I loved doing. So I know what it's like to be on the other end, and now I love being the person that can help you guys answer. I can help answer any questions that you guys have. If you have reached out to Homhero support before via phone, email, chat, then there's a good chance we have already spoken. If you haven't, then please feel free to do so. I will share all of our contact methods at the end as well. So setting up security deposits like a pro. We know that most guests are really respectful of your properties, but it is inevitable at some stage there will be damages caused. So dealing with those damages, I know, is the bane of most property managers' roles, especially if you don't already have a security deposit in place, because it can be really hard to get those funds from the guests after departure. A lot of you may already have security deposits in place because of this. We do have a really wide range of attendees today. So I will also be covering some other topics, not just how to set those up, but hopefully there's something else that you can learn from today, even if you already use security deposits. The session should go for around 30 to 45 minutes, with some time at the end to answer any questions you may have as well. So throughout the session, please feel free to submit your questions. You should have a Q&A box below. I will try to get through as many as I can, but if your question doesn't get answered, then please do feel free to reach out afterwards as well. So what are we covering today? There we go, Q&A. Sorry, feel free to drop your questions below. What are we covering? We will look at different types of security deposits you can use, so pre-authorisations and refundable security deposits, how to actually set those up, create them in Homhero. Now you might need different amounts or different types for each property, so we will look at how to attach those to your properties. There are some additional settings for Airbnb that we will dive into if you'd like to enable security deposits for Airbnb. How to enable guest portal security deposits. So we have a new feature that allows the guest to actually pay this online. And if you are asking your guests to pay them online, obviously you'll need to update your correspondence to reflect that. So we'll look at updating your correspondence. And lastly, what the guest will actually see on the portal once you've enabled it, because it's all good and well setting it up, but if you don't know what the guest is supposed to see, then it makes it hard for you to answer any questions they have. So we will go through some examples of how that looks for them. Of course, at the end, your chance to ask questions if there's something that I haven't covered. So first, I just want to look, at those definitions of security deposits, clarify the terminology there. I've been saying security deposit this time, which some people do use to refer to as just a refundable security deposit. If you hear me talking about security deposits today, that does cover both the refundable type and the pre-authorization type. They are both, a deposit that the guest puts down to for security of the property. So you've got refundable and you've got pre-authorization. What is the difference between those two? So refundable security deposit means you are actually taking money from the guest's account, and then you need to physically refund it back to them afterwards if there's no damages. So this could be done via credit card or bank transfer, but it is recommended that it's refunded to their same method of payment. So if they pay via card, then you should refund that via card and not bank transfer. This refundable method does take some more admin work, but it gives you a bit more control over the refund process. So your second option is a pre-authorization, or you might hear pre-auth shortened down there. This means that the guest bank is setting that money aside and you're pre-approved to take the funds in case of damages, but you don't actually receive any money unless you capture that hold, so keep it to cover the damages. On the guest side, those appear as pending transactions in their account, not completed transactions. So it will still be in their current account balance, but they won't be able to spend it. It will be deducted from their available balance. So they might see, for example, 1,500 as their current balance, but only 1,000 as their available balance if a $500 is being held as pre-auth. This is released automatically by the guest's bank, and the timing differs between the banks for this, so you don't have as much control. It does tend to be between 7 and 30 days from the date that it's first charged, but you won't be able to sort of decide that length. That will be decided by the guest bank. When that does get released by the bank, the pending transaction simply disappears from the guest account and their available balance updates accordingly. So they now have that 1,500 available, but they don't actually see funds deposited back into their account because it was never technically taken out of their account. So this method is the most automated because you don't need to receipt the funds when you charge a pre-auth, and you don't need to refund it afterwards. That's all handled. However, like I mentioned, you don't have as much control over those funds since the guest bank will be the ones to release the money back to them. It can also cause a few questions from the guests if they're waiting to see a refund. So if you do end up using the pre-auth method, I would recommend making sure that your team fully understand that process and can confidently answer the questions they may get from guests. So both of these options have their benefits. We do see a mixture of both across Homhero users, but obviously you will need to weigh up what suits your company best. You might even find that you need to use different types for different properties. So I'll show you how to do that later in the session, how to attach different types, different amounts to each property. There is a third option for security deposit, which we are starting to see more frequently. This is called a damage waiver. So essentially a damage waiver is a small non-refundable charge that's added to every booking. This would be done via your packages. And those funds are kept aside in a sort of pool of funds in case of any damages. Because most guests don't cause any damages, those funds slowly keep accumulating, and you end up with a decent sized pool of funds to draw from to cover damages when they do occur. This would be used as a replacement for a security deposit, so you would have a damage waiver instead. But if you are changing over to this method, you may want to use both for a short amount of time until that pool of funds has built up enough. Otherwise, if you switch over and your first guest causes damages, then you won't have any money in that pool. So you might want to cross those over a little. Damage waivers have a lot of benefits. Firstly, it's obviously more automated than even your pre-authorization because the cost is just part of the booking. There's no additional payment required, no questions about the refund, that sort of thing. Secondly, some guests may prefer a property that doesn't have a security deposit advertised. So if they're already tossing up between two properties, then this might just be their deciding factor. You know, it's just that flat amount they pay for the booking and no security deposit required. Plus, when the damages do occur, you have a little bit more flexibility in charging the guest. So, you know, things like a small damage, a broken wine glass, the guest always thinks, well, that's the owner's responsibility to pay, and the owner thinks that it's the guest's responsibility to pay, right? So you're kind of stuck in the middle. This way you can take a few dollars from that pool of funds and you don't have to talk to your guest or your owner about it. You're not going to get, you know, reviews from guests about extortionate charges. I've seen that before. And, you know, the owner's not then going to use it as a reason to bring up other things that they're unhappy about if you reach out to ask for a couple of dollars for a wine glass. So that gives you a little bit more freedom to just take from your pool of funds when needed without causing any arguments between either party. For larger damages as well, you're obviously not limited to the amount of the security deposit that's advertised. So if you currently take $250 for a security deposit at the moment, that's obviously not enough to cover something like furniture replacement, a coffee table replacement. So you take the full amount from the guest and then you need to source the rest of the money from somewhere, either the owner or even worse, your business income. With a damage waiver, if you've got the balance right, you know, charging the right amount for your damage waiver, you should have also funds available to cover some of those larger damages. Obviously, a damage waiver doesn't suit everyone. So if you're already finding that your listings maybe are priced higher than others in the area, it's probably not wise to add a few extra dollars onto every reservation. Or if you have a larger ratio of damages than normal, maybe somewhere like the Gold Coast, which has a few more party goers, you might prefer to have an actual security deposit attached to your properties. If this is something you do want to look at setting up a damage waiver, feel free to reach out to our support team afterwards. For the rest of this session, I'll just focus on the refundable and pre-authorization types, since those are set up a bit differently and charged separately from the bookings and things like that. So now we know what our options are, how do we actually create those? I'll just jump out of this screen here and jump into Homhero so we can look at setting those up. Great, so security deposits are set up in your Homhero settings. If you like, you can search in your left-hand menu to find your settings here. And then down here in your security deposits. Just note that your settings are only visible to users that have super access. So if you're looking in your Homhero account and you don't see this option, you might need to check with your manager. Today I'm using our demonstration account, so mine up here says demo company, just so that I can actually make some live changes. We do already have security deposits set up in ours. Yours might be blank if you haven't used this before. You might just have a blank screen here. So looking at the ones we already have set up, on the left-hand column here, we can see the amount of the security deposit, then the name of the security deposit, which will be really helpful in the next step, attaching them to properties. So just make sure you do give them a name that you can recognize. Then you've got special conditions, which you can attach to each security deposit if you need to. So things like this will be refunded back to the card on file 7 days after departure, subject to an inspection of the property. If your conditions are the same for each security deposit, though, you actually don't need to add it to each individual security deposit. You can add it to a default setting, which is under your guest portal. I'll show you that one later on. There's no point to add it if it's the same for everything. You can just use the default. Then you've got your type of security deposit, so either pre-auth or a refundable. The ones that we've got here are set as, with final balance, rather than a refundable one that's due at the time of booking. So pre-auth or final balance we can see here. And we have got a combination of both in our account. You are more than welcome to have a combination there as well. The next column here is the sundry that is being used for your security deposit. So a pre-auth actually doesn't require a sundry. Like I mentioned earlier, you're not actually receiving those funds when you charge a pre-auth or when the guest pays their pre-auth. So you don't need a sundry to put the money into, only when you actually take the money or capture that hold. That's when it would go towards a sundry, like if you have one set up for damages. If you are using a refundable security deposit, you will need a specific sundry set up for that, and there are a few settings. So I might send out actually the article afterwards, how to set up that sundry, just to make sure you do get that one correct. Lastly, we can see actually when that security deposit is due. So for something like a pre-authorization, it is recommended to take either on arrival or maybe 1 day before arrival, for example. Because the bank is the one that controls when that is released, you don't want it processed too early. Otherwise, it might be released before the guest actually departs. For refundable security deposits, though, feel free to take those further in advance. So you could do, when the final balance is due, if you've got 30 days before arrival, you could do that at the same time. Otherwise, you might want 7 days, 21 days, that sort of thing. You can even set up that it's due at the time of creating the booking as well. So if you already have some security deposits set up here and you need to edit them, some of these columns you can actually click into. So you can click in and change the number of days due before arrival, for example. Otherwise, you can click on the green pencil to edit and it will bring up all of the settings. Or if you want to delete those ones and start from scratch, maybe they've been there, you didn't know about them, don't need them, you can use that red trash bin icon on the right-hand side. Or if you need to create a new one from scratch, it's up the top here in the big green Add Security Deposit button. This pop-up here is the same that we saw when editing the security deposit, so it's got all the same settings. You would add a name of the security deposit. Again, make it something you can recognize. Don't make them all the same name. You need the bond amount, how much is actually due. Your bond type, so I mentioned there's pre-auth, final balance refundable, or at booking refundable. Then a sundry if applicable, so only for your refundable security deposits. And of course, when it's due. So if you want 7 days before arrival, you would put 7 in here. Lastly, you have your special conditions, and you'll see that you've actually got some formatting options up here as well. So if you want to make some of your text bold or underlined, for example, you can use that. Once you've filled out all of those, just save down the bottom right, and also make sure to save your settings down the bottom right here as well. I've already got some set up, so I'm not going to create any new ones, but that's how you can create your security deposits, either refundable or pre-auth. Now that we have them, we'll need to actually attach them to our properties, otherwise they won't apply anywhere. If they're just in here, they're available for you to use, but you do need to attach them to your properties. So this can be done in your property management section. Oh, need to spell that properly, property management. There we go. In your property management section, you have got all of your areas first. So this is all of your individual properties. Then you've actually got a tab up the top called properties. If you click into this one, this should be your company name here. If you've got the same security deposit for all of your properties, or at least all of your properties have, a similar security deposit, you can add a default option in here. And then you can override it on the individual properties if you need to. So let's say most of your properties have got a $500 security deposit, but you've got a really nice property that's got $2,000. I would put in a default here under your properties tab. All new properties would use the $500, and you would just override that one nice property that's got the $2,000 security deposit. For very few setups, you might see in this account that you've got multiple properties. For example, if you've got houses in multiple states, you might have like a New South Wales and a Queensland option here, things like that. You would need to edit each one if you want your default for all of your houses. You'll need to add it to each property that's here. Cool, so to edit our default, we can double click or use our green pencil. On the first tab here, you've got a security deposit drop down. And here's all of those ones that we were looking at earlier. So this is our name, the 600 refundable, for example. That's why it's important that you don't name them all the same, because you'll need to be able to select them from the drop down. So if I select one in here, this is now our default for all of our properties, and I'll save. Cool. You'll notice here on this tab that it doesn't update straight away. It still says NA for your security deposit. And this is actually a really handy tip that you can use in a lot of places in Homhero if you don't already know. Whenever you need to refresh your page, you'll often find this icon here, which is your 2 arrows going around. It's much quicker to refresh this way. It just reloads this section that we're in. You don't need to refresh your whole browser. So if you are often refreshing your browser, take a look around. You might find that there's a button like this in your screen. It's much faster for you. So now it shows 200 as our default. If we go back to our areas tab, the same here. These are all set as NA at the moment, but if I refresh, you'll see these all now have a default security deposit applied to them. It is in gray writing. Again, this is something that shows throughout Homhero if it is using a default setting. That tells you there that light gray writing. This is coming from a default setting on your account that we just did. These ones here that have the black text, these have an override on them already. So 11 Ocean Shores here has a $500 refundable security deposit. Let me just drag that. I've changed the size of my mouse so I can't drag it across, but that's a $500 refundable security deposit there. Even though I updated the default, it doesn't update these properties that already have an override on them. So default is really good if all of your properties need a security deposit. It will apply to all of them, and then you can override properties that have a different security deposit. So if we need to edit an existing one, or for example, you might not be using that default, you can do that per area. Again, you can use your green pencil or double click. And on this first tab here, you'll see your security deposit. So same drop-down menu that we saw earlier, you can select the security deposit for that specific property. Then you can save down the bottom right. Lovely. So that is how you can attach all of your security deposits to your properties. Again, it means that you can use different types or different amounts for different properties, set them all up, and then attach them in property management. But the next topic I wanted to cover is how to enable this for Airbnb, because I have actually noticed recently a lot of people aren't aware that you're allowed to take security deposits for Airbnb reservations because Airbnb offers that resolution center. However, it is allowed as long as you follow their conditions. So firstly, you need an approved software partner. Luckily for you, you use Homhero, so of course it's already approved. Then you do need to make sure it's added to your listings in the correct way. So I'll take you through that shortly. But before we get to that, we just need to check some settings already in Homhero. So in your settings again, and then your booking sources settings here. So this setting allows you to have different options for different booking sources. It's very likely that when you first set up, you may have set Airbnb to exclude security deposits and not take them. If you do want to take security deposits for Airbnb reservations, you'll need to edit this and untick it. So if it is ticked and you want to take security deposits for Airbnb, you need to untick. So you can double click to edit, untick here, so we don't want to exclude them, and then save, and again save down the bottom right. Cool. Otherwise, if you go through and do all of the other settings which we're about to do, and you still have this ticked, then your Airbnb reservations wouldn't have a security deposit applied. So then we can do the actual Airbnb settings. Just like the property management one, we have a default setting and an individual listing setting. So your default we'll start with is under channel management and then connections. In here, you can go to the Airbnb spanner icon, then the green pencil to edit, and then your pricing tab. In here, you'll see quite a few different fees. You don't need to fill out any of these other types of cleaning fees, any of these other types of fees in here, like your cleaning fee. These should come from your packages instead. So please only adjust the security deposit fee while you're here. If you do have questions about those other ones, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to answer those. But for now, just touch the security deposit. So in here, you can add the security deposit if you do have a default amount. Let's say most of your properties use a $500 security deposit. You can save that as your default. I'll just go back into there because you'll notice the text underneath. It does mention that this is an offline security deposit. So you are still processing it as normal, offline, not part of Airbnb's payment platform. There is also a limitation there that it does have to be between $100 and $5,000 for your security deposits. So just keep that in mind when you're typing in here. So if I save that, exit out of there, that's now the default for my Airbnb listings. They will be advertised with a $500 security deposit. Then if you want to override it on specific listings, or if you don't want to use that default at all, we can go to our booking engine and then listings page. So in here is all of our listings, all of our OTA icons. So just click on the Airbnb icon for that listing. Again, we'll go to the pricing tab. And you'll see here, just like our property management, that we now have that gray text. This is now coming from our default setting, 500. If I want to override that, I would type in here and you'll see that it's the black text now. So you've got your default and you've got your listing level, but you do have to do it specifically for Airbnb, add it to your listing settings. Just adding it in property management that we did first doesn't feed through to Airbnb, so you'll need to do this as well. Cool. Now the lovely Nicole, who is hopefully here watching, has let me use her listing as an example. You may have seen this one on the newsletter. Love the view. I'll show you how it appears on Airbnb once you've done that. So you'll see the normal price here. If you go to reserve, now hopefully it's still available because I brought this up a little bit earlier. It is. You'll see the pricing on the right-hand side, and then underneath that, this property requires $500 security deposit. It will be collected separately by the property prior to your arrival or at check-in. So it is advertised to the guests on Airbnb, but you will be processing it directly. Cool. So hopefully there might be some people that have learned something there that didn't realize you could take security deposits through Airbnb, or at least didn't know how to set them up. So there we go. We are making good progress. I've got a couple more things to go through, so hopefully you're still with me. Just a reminder, it is being recorded, so if you do need to shoot off, if you've missed anything, don't worry, you'll be able to watch again later. But we are about to get to the good part, saving you time. So to enable guests to pay this on the guest portal instead, we've just had an upgrade to this process. So this works for both the refundable security deposits and the pre-auths. If you want to enable your guests to pay online, I'll just jump out of here. Again, back in settings, we've been in there a couple of times today. To enable guests to pay this online, it's under your guest portal settings. In here, oh lovely, mine is already enabled, you have one here called Guest Portal Security Deposit. So you can toggle this on, and you do have two additional settings here. Whether this refundable security deposit is subject to a credit card surcharge, and whether your pre-auth is subject to a credit card surcharge. Because your payment gateway is still going to charge you for those, you may choose to pass that fee on to your guest. Just note that if you are using this feature, if you do enable the guest portal security deposit, it does remove the option on the guest registration to upload a credit card, so that credit card upload will be disabled. You won't get a photo anymore because they'll be manually entering their card or their card number to make the payment online instead. Okay, so you won't need that photo. You enable this, they pay online, you don't need the photo anymore. And here's that other default conditions that I mentioned earlier. If you've got the same special conditions for every security deposit, you may as well just add it here rather than each individual security deposit. Cool, so once you've done that, you can save your settings down the bottom right. The next thing you would need to do is update your correspondence, because obviously now we allow the guests to pay the security deposit online, but we need to actually advise them of that. If they don't receive any updated correspondence, they won't know how to. So you can update your correspondence under your schedules. I have already got one set up here. Let me just bring that up. Guest portal security deposit. I won't go into all of the details about how to do the whole schedule. That's a whole nother thing. Obviously, there's a lot of settings in here. I will cover that in another webinar either next month or the month after. So if that's something that you're interested in, keep your eyes peeled. But just for this one in particular, I'll just show you how you can send the guest a link to the guest portal for paying this. So I've already created this template. If you'd like a copy of this, I can send that through afterwards as well. But basically, it's this merge field here that you will use. So it's called security deposit URL. That will generate a unique link for every reservation. When they click on it, it'll take them directly to the page to pay the security deposit. For the way that you set up your schedule is going to be very dependent on your current workflow. Things like when your final payment is due, if you use the online registration, when your security deposit is due. So you might choose to add this to an existing schedule, or you might choose to set up a new one and use this merge field in there. Either way, you can find that merge field here under this icon that looks like an ID. Then you can type in to find this merge field, security deposit URL, okay? Then for the guest, I'll show you what it will look like for them. If you're sending them this URL, let me just bring up a reservation. I believe this is the right one. If we go to their correspondence, this is that schedule that I was just looking at. Now this layout might also be different for some of you watching if you're on our original inbox. This is what our unified inbox will look like once you switch over to that. So rather than, individual messages here, you now have a whole thread that you can view. That might look a little bit different. If you have any questions about that, let me know. But otherwise, the link will look the same. So it'll be something like this, which is a unique link for each reservation. If they click on that, it takes them directly to the guest portal. So I'll open the guest portal for this reservation specifically. Once they click on that, it does automatically fill in with their login details so that they don't have to find that. The same for your online registration. If you're using that, it automatically fills in. And if I log in, it'll take me directly to the security deposit page. So you could send this before you send out your online registration if you need to, or before any of those other links. It's just going to show them this page here, which is for the pre-authorization in this case. I do have another one already open that would be for a refundable security deposit. So you've got the difference there. There's not too much. It looks very similar. Obviously, it's referred to as security deposit in this one, whereas this one is pre-authorization. So same form. When you send it out to them, they go straight to this page. It has their booking details at the top. It tells them how much is due and the terms and conditions of the reservation. So if they click on this one, this terms and conditions comes from your property management section, your guest agreement. So if you want to update that as well, they'll be able to view that when they're paying their security deposit. Cool, so then they can just enter their card details in here and pay. If you do use 3D Secure or 3DS, and you have that enabled for security deposit, then they may be prompted to enter that code here as well. So let me just put in, this is a fake card. You're not stealing my credit card details, don't worry. It's a fake card that will just allow me to put a transaction through. This is Sir Lewis Hamilton himself. There we go. So they'll enter their card details here and authorize for that transaction. Hopefully this works for a pre-authorization with the fake card. I have tested it for a refundable one, but we may not be able to go through with that. Anyway, how that will look is it will take them to a payment receipt page, which they can then download. They also get an email copy as well, but that's all that they would have to do, possibly just having an issue there with that test credit card that I was using. So this one is how it would look for the refundable security deposit. Very similar. Obviously, if you send them a link where something like the security deposit is not yet due or they don't actually have a security deposit, then it won't take them to this page. There will be a few other messages they might see. So I have got some examples here. If they've got a refundable security deposit and their account balance is actually not yet paid, they'll be taken to this page where they need to pay for that first. Obviously, if they are, you might be thinking Airbnb and they've still got an account balance, or a virtual credit card and they still have an account balance, this won't happen for them. We do still treat those as paid bookings, even when they've got a balance. So they will still be able to pay their security deposit. Or if a security deposit is not required at all, it would look like this. They won't actually go to that page either. Now, it does also appear on the main page of the guest portal. So if I go back to the main page, it has a similar sort of message here. So this one is account balance needs to be paid first. Actually, it might be. I've logged into a few guest portals at once, so I think that obviously wouldn't happen for your guests. It might be showing different tiles here because I've logged in 2 different accounts, but it will look very similar here. So if they go straight to their guest portal, and the account balance needs to be paid first, they can't actually click on that tile. It says that the account balance needs to be paid. If they don't have a security deposit at all, then that tile actually won't appear. It won't show at all. They'll just have the other 4 tiles. And if they have already paid their security deposit, then that will also show the amount that's already been paid. Cool. So lots of different ways that that might look on the guest portal, depending on all of those things. If the security deposit is not due yet, if there is no security deposit, if they need to pay the account balance first, that is all set up to make sure the guest is aware of that flow, what they need to do. We are almost at the end, so thank you for sticking with me. You might have a couple more questions about like how are you going to see once the guest has paid the security deposit, because you might be used to handling security deposits manually and you know when they go through, you see that it's successful or failed. But if the guest is paying it online, then they might do that at any time of day. So there are a few places you can check in Homhero whether your guest has paid the security deposit yet. If you do take the pre-authorisations on the day of arrival, your dashboard is probably your easiest method. So on your dashboard, you'll be able to see your arrivals for the day. Here it will show the amount of the security deposit that's attached to the reservation, and then the amount that has been paid. So these 2 reservations have not actually paid their security deposit yet. So you can see that at a glance. You will have the same icons on your reservations list as well. So over, I've got a lot of columns showing on mine. Over in this column, you've got security deposit, how much is attached to the reservation, and then how much has been paid. So you won't be able to see, you'll be able to see there, sorry, whether they have paid their security deposit or not. You can also check on the reservation directly. So I'll open up this one hopefully is a good example. On the transactions page here, and if we go to the payments, we can see here that a pre-auth has been taken of $500 on this reservation. Pre-auths don't actually create a receipt, so there'll be no receipt, but it will be in your payments tab. If that is a refundable security deposit, then of course it will take both because you have actually processed that money. You're holding on to that money. So there'll be a successful payment in here and there'll be a successful receipt on the booking. And of course you can also check in your correspondence because if they're paying online, it does send them that email receipt. So you would be able to check there as well. One last feature that has been added recently is the ability to actually capture those pre-auths within Homhero. So when you do actually need to keep the funds from the guest for damages, you can do so within Homhero. If you are using Merchant Warrior, is the only payment gateway at the moment that this is supported for. In our demo account, I won't be able to show you the whole process of this, but I will show you very briefly here under your payment options. You then have a button here to capture that pre-auth. It would allow you to put in how much to capture as well. You don't have to take the full amount if you've got a really large pre-auth. You can take just whatever is required to cover those damages. Okay. Perfect. Hopefully that has covered a lot of questions, no matter your skill level of Homhero. I hopefully have been able to share something new with you. What I will do is I will jump in then to any questions that we may have had. Just one moment. There we go. I can see I may have covered this. I'm not sure if it has been missed, but someone has asked how long the pre-auth has been held for. That is determined by the guest bank. So unfortunately, it's not something you can determine yourself. It is typically 7 to 30 days, but it's not something that you can change on your end. Someone has asked if you could use refundable bonds as well as the damage waiver at the same time. Definitely. And like I mentioned, if you are changing between refundable and damage waiver, you probably do want to do both at the same time. Typically, a damage waiver is instead of the refundable deposit, but that's completely up to you if you want to do both, especially if you don't itemize your damage waiver to the guest. So if the guest doesn't know that they're paying for that fee, then there's no reason that you can't do both. Obviously, if you are itemizing it and telling your guest that they're paying a damage waiver, then you don't want to be charging them a refundable bond as well. That fee is supposed to be, they're paying this so that they don't have to pay a refundable bond, essentially. Someone has asked if the security deposit doesn't cover the damages, if Airbnb Resolution Centre can still assist. Yes, you can still use Airbnb Resolution Centre. There's nothing stopping you from using that, even if you want to go through them each time and only use the security deposit if you can't get an outcome from Airbnb or something like that. Yes, you can still use Airbnb Resolution Centre as well. How do we charge it for Airbnb if we don't have the credit card on the booking? You would still be able to send them that payment link to pay online. So if you do want to enable it for Airbnb, you probably want to enable guests to pay on the portal and they can enter their card details there. Same question there below. Do we have to ask guests for Airbnb guests for credit card details? Yes, you can do that via that payment link. Someone has asked if they can use security deposit for one portal only. Absolutely. If you find that maybe one channel you want to have a little bit more security with, you would still set it all up as normal. So set it up in your settings, attach it to all of your properties, and then you would use your booking source settings to exclude all of the other ones. So something like, exclude for Airbnb, exclude for direct. Maybe if you do want it for booking.com, don't exclude them, just exclude all of the other booking sources. Cool. The registration form. I mentioned that if you enable the guest to pay on the guest portal, to pay their security deposit on the guest portal, then they won't be able to upload a credit card on the registration form as well. So you can still use the registration. You can still get their ID signature on the house rules as normal, but you won't be able to do both a security deposit payment online and a photo of the guest card on the registration. That is one or the other. Someone has asked how much, percentage of the booking to use as a damage waiver. That really depends a lot. I've taken a look at a lot of accounts that use damage waivers, and it really varies, especially, on your type of properties, how much lenience you have with your pricing for reservations. You don't want to overprice them, compared to how many damages that you actually get, because you want to make sure that you're taking enough. So I have seen there's a lot of different ways to do the package for it. You could do a flat fee per booking. So you might want to take $20 per booking, for example. You might want to take a flat fee per night. Some people do it up to a maximum amount, so maybe $10 per night, but a maximum of $100, that sort of thing. And others may do a percentage as well. So I can't say what's right for how you should set it up on your end, but if you'd like to reach out and discuss all of those options, I can definitely show you how to do each one. If a guest calls to pay their security deposit over the phone instead, how do we make sure that the amount paid is allocated to the security deposit? So this is actually the same at the moment. Nothing has changed with that guest portal. You might just want to be cautious if you are using 3D Secure, whether you need all of your transactions to go through 3D Secure. Some people want everything to go through there. If not, and you're happy to process manual payments, your payment will go to the outstanding funds on the booking. So they should technically have paid their total balance on their booking first, and then the security deposit is most common. So if only the security deposit is outstanding, then the amount would go towards the security deposit. Someone has asked, I did mention a very similar question before. Can you still request ID if you turn off credit card upload? Yes, you can still use your registration as normal. You just don't have the option for the credit card upload anymore. How to charge for damages on pre-auth. So sorry, I can't show you the full process in our demo account, but there's a button there under payment options on the reservation. It's called capture pre-auth. So that is putting it through as a completed transaction. I'll touch base afterwards and show you that one directly. How to take the payment from pre-auth if you don't have Merchant Warrior? Good question. If you are using a different payment gateway that's not Merchant Warrior and you need to keep the funds from the pre-authorization, you would need to do it directly in your payment gateway. It will look different for each one, so I don't know exactly where that will be, I'm sorry, but you should have an option there to capture or complete a pre-auth. How does the Airbnb guest receive their pre-auth link to the Homhero guest portal? So this can be done in your schedules. If you don't have the email address for your Airbnb guest, it can be sent via Airbnb message. You can still send the link there. If you want to SMS it to them as well, you can, or if you want to get their email address and then put it into the booking, you can, but you can send Airbnb messages from Homehero. Can you only use guest portal security deposits for just Airbnb bookings? Again, completely up to you if you want to use it for all booking sources, if you want to use it for just some or none at all. You can choose in your booking source settings whether the reservation requires a security deposit, and you can also change your correspondence to only send out to Airbnb, for example, or only to booking.com. Perfect. There is a couple of other similar questions that I have already covered, so I will try to reach out directly to anyone who I couldn't answer their questions. Or if you think that your question didn't get answered, also feel free to reach out to me. I'll just show you our contact details here as well before I head off. So hopefully you have already reached out to our support team before. Promise we are all very friendly and very helpful. You can always reach us via phone during standard business hours, 1300 249 980, and that is also listed at the bottom left corner of Homehero. And whenever you're logged in, you can find our phone number down the bottom left. We also have a live chat available. So in Homehero, it's just above that. There should be a help section on your left-hand menu, or up the top right, there is a question mark icon. You can click on that to start a live chat if we're online. We also have our direct email addresses here as well. So general support for Homehero, we've got support@homehero.com.au. You may have also used support@homestar.com.au. That goes to the same place. Don't worry if you're sending it there. You can reach us on either one. We also have a direct email address for our trust account specialist. So although I know a fair bit about Homehero, trust accounting is a whole nother set of skills. So we do have specialists that do that. If you'd like to reach them directly about a trust account question, support@hometrust.com.au. And we also have an email there for our billing, so for your Homehero invoices. It's admin@homestar.com.au. You may hopefully also know that we have got knowledge-based articles available. We are always adding more, and we do even have some pre-recorded videos in there as well, which we're working on adding. So if you'd like to check there, if you can't find it, of course, feel free to reach out. We may even be able to write one up. And we have got a status page here for any scheduled maintenance or any issues. So if you think that maybe something is not working correctly in Homehero, I would recommend checking there as your first point, and then reach out to us. You can subscribe there for updates, live notifications of anything that is coming up and things as well. Lovely. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. Hopefully, I will see you all on the next one as well. We are planning on doing a couple more webinars, so I would love to hear your feedback if there's anything I can do better next time. You can reach me, Tatiana, at homhero.com.au, and of course, our support team, support@homhero.com.au. Thank you, everyone. See you.